is 9:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Let's see here. Did Linda turn her camera off? Oh no, there she is. No, there you are. Okay. All right, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the ABCs of OER. My name is Sally Potter, and I am the OER faculty coordinator for Fresno City College, and I'm joined by my colleague, Linda Kobashigawa. She is a librarian, and she's also the chair of the OER committee and chair of the ZTC task force, and she serves our college as the ASCCC OERI liaison. Today's agenda, this is what we're planning. I'm going to talk to you about what OER is, give you some definitions, talk to you a little bit about why you might consider using it, why it's good for students and good for us faculty, how to use OER, how to deliver it to students, how to incorporate it into your courses. And then I'll turn it over to Linda, and she's going to show you where you can find OER. Hopefully we are going to be able to have some time towards the end for you to really explore the different repositories and referatories, and so that you can walk away from this presentation today with at least one or two good resources that you can use for a course that you teach or courses that you teach. And then, of course, we'll have some time for questions at the end. There are a couple of us here today, and we also have a chat facilitator. So if you do have a question as we go, please go ahead and type it in the chat. While I'm talking, Linda may be able to answer. While Linda's talking, I may be able to answer, but we certainly will give some time at the end or intermittently to answer questions as they come up. Okay, so a lot of words on this slide here, but let me go through this pretty quickly. Just so we all know what we're talking about, everyone has kind of a base definition of these things that we're going to be bringing up. So first, it's OER, Open Educational Resources. And what does that mean? That's referring to the license of an instructional material. So OER are educational resources that reside in the public domain, or they have been released under an intellectual property license. Creative Commons is really the main one. And that permits their free use, repurposing, basically free to use, free to give to your students. And OERs can include things like textbooks, full courses, videos, assessments, rubrics, even software, any instructional material. Okay. OERs are not necessarily digital, although sometimes we think of them as digital materials. You're going to find them digitally, certainly, but you can deliver them to your students in a printed form. And if you do so, there may be a cost associated with that. So there may be a cost if students do have to pay for printing, paper, ink, shipping costs, handling costs, that kind of thing. Instructional materials. So I want to really distinguish the instructional materials from supplies. And this is important because this has to do with the way that we report on our OER use for the college to the state. So instructional materials, that refers to textbooks, could be lab manuals, any supplementary materials, articles that you give your students. Could also include software that they need for the course, homeworking systems, that kind of thing. Supplies are in a different domain. And when we talk about OER, we really are excluding supplies. There are some ASCCC resolutions that are out there that address supplies. And so we expect that in the future, there will be some legislation on how to indicate if there's a cost for a supply for your course. But right now, what supplies are the extra things that some courses require. So things like lab coats, goggles, calculators. If it's an art course, any of the art supplies like paint, clay, yoga mat, equipment like that. Those are not included in instructional materials. So a course could be an OER course, zero cost for instructional supplies, but there could be some other kind of cost. And, of course, that's very discipline specific. Okay. I want to show you the reason why these definitions are important, and that is that there is a California law that says that all California community colleges must mark their zero textbook cost courses, so their ZTC courses, in the schedule of courses. So Fresno City College is compliant with that law. So if you look in self-service from the student point of view, you can see these icons. There are a few icons in self-service, but these two icons in particular. The first one is this little textbook with the little cross through the $sign. That indicates that it's a zero textbook cost course. That means that the instructional materials have no cost for the students, okay? It's not necessarily talking about what license those materials are under, and so I'm gonna get into a little bit of a distinction there in just a couple slides here, but it's really talking about the cost. Okay, and again, there could be some costs associated with supplies. Different departments on campus indicate this a little bit differently, but for the most part, if you are an instructor and you're offering a zero textbook cost course, you go into Follett Discover Hub and you have to mark it yourself. Okay, so you have to indicate that it's a ZTC course. For the low textbook cost course, so this little icon is that little blue one with the $sign and a little down arrow, and any course that has required instructional materials that are $40 or less are supposed to automatically, instructor doesn't have to do anything, get this icon on the course. There have been some problems with that in the past. So if you think that your course should have the low textbook cost icon or even the ZTC icon and it doesn't, reach out to me, let me know, and I can investigate, because there have been some issues with the with Follett Discover in that way. Okay. All right, Creative Commons. I mentioned Creative Commons licensing. This is a nonprofit that's dedicated to building a globally accessible public commons of knowledge and culture. This supplies the copyright licenses. So it works within existing copyright law. And so really the way copyright law works is anytime an author, creator makes some kind of work, including instructional material, it's automatically copyrighted, or the author can put a CC license on their work. And depending on what license they choose, that tells users what they can do with that material. So this is what the different CC licenses look like. You may have seen these little icons before. You may be very familiar with this. We could do a whole 2 to 3 hour workshop we have in the past on looking at these different licenses and exactly what they mean. So I'm just going to really quickly give you the rundown here. First, the most open one is public domain. In general, works 70 years after the author has been deceased, the work will go into public domain. In general, that's the United States law. Different countries have different rules about that. Then we get into the Creative Commons licenses. When you see the BY, that means by. And so what that means is that if you use that resource, if you use that instructional material and give it to your students or use it for any purpose, you have to provide the author's name or the institution that if there's no person associated with it. The SA means share alike. And so what that means is that if you use that material, you have to, and you do any edits to it or any repurposing of it, you have to share it under the same exact license that the original has. The NC means non-commercial. And so what that means is that you can't sell it, okay? And which is interesting because the other ones, you can take them and you can sell them for a profit if you want. I don't know why anyone would want to buy them because they could just go and get them for free themselves, but that is an option. And then we get down to the really more restrictive licenses with less freedom. These are kind of considered not OER. It's the ND, means no derivatives. And that really means that they can't be edited. Okay, so for the most part, all the ones in the green up top, you can take those, you can edit those, you can take pieces of them, mix them around, you know, change things like examples, change names, you know, change, even update the grammar or the language, you know, basically do anything that you want to it. It's just that the ND, you're not allowed to make edits to those. Okay. I want to really quickly talk to you about ZTC and zero textbook cost, because this is looking at these materials from sort of a different perspective. So when we're talking about the licenses, that is really the permissions, the things that we can do with the materials, but it's not necessarily referring to the cost. So remember I said that, you know, sometimes OER material can be a small cost for students if they have to purchase paper, ink, you know, that kind of thing. ZTC, zero textbook cost, means that there is no cost associated, but some of the material that you're using, some of the course materials may be copyrighted. So what could those things be? They could be things that we find in our library databases. Any article, ebook, video that you can that your students have access to through the library databases, you can deliver those through Canvas to your students for no charge. Okay, so things like the New York Times, we have a subscription to that. Our library does, so we can pull articles, New York Times articles, and give them to our students for no cost. Also, websites that are freely available, you can also give the content for those websites to your students. You can link out to them, you can copy portions of the text and cite them. That's copyrighted information for the most part, but that would be free to students. And then you can also write your own. And I included that on there because everyone who's an instructor is writing some of their own content, whether it's going to be, you know, small bits of instructions, making videos, you know, all of that. You can create that, put a CC license on it if you would like to, or just simply deliver it to your students for free. Okay, so why should we switch to ZTC OER materials for our students? There are many studies out there. This one is a little dated, it's from 2018, but it's very comprehensive, almost 22,000 students from different types of institutions, 2-year, 4-year universities, even I think graduate students were included in this. And this shows the grade point averages for OER courses versus non-OER courses. And so you can see that the clear bars there, that's non-OER, and then the gray bar is OER. So you can see for the white demographic, it's pretty considerably an improvement in their grades when the courses are using OER, and for the non-white students, even more of an improvement for their grades. Okay, and then I've got some local data here for you. So this is looking at 2023-24, and in our data dashboards, we have now we have a ZTC, LTC filters, so you can filter data for your program or your department or your course that you teach, if you'd like to. And if you're interested in how to do that, where that is, we have another session today. It's on campus only, called Hands-on Data, and that's at 1 o'clock. Yeah, I think it's at 1 o'clock. So if you're on campus, you can join us for that. If you are interested in this, I don't have time to go into the filters right now, but if you're interested in this, you can reach out to me and I can kind of walk you through it. So this is for our Fresno City College students across the all disciplines, all divisions, and you can see that the blue is the non-ZTC or LTC, and the orange is ZTC. And I just compared those two because it looks a lot cleaner. For all students, there's a bit of a bump up for the overall success rates when instructors are using ZTC. And what I mean by overall success rates is that they started in the course, they completed the course, and they received a passing grade in the course, okay, versus not. I picked out these three specific demographics because our college is really focusing on improving the success rates for our males of color. So for African American males, for Hispanic males, and for Asian Pacific Islander males, you can see that there's quite a difference, significant difference in the overall success rates. So if you are in a program, you're trying to improve your success rates, your completion, your GPA, your retention rates, the whole thing. This might be a strategy that you could consider exploring, is adopting more ZTC and OER to your courses. I didn't make a chart because it's too much, but this is a little bit more of the data, the same data that we saw in the chart. And it just has a little more, some different groups. What you can see here is that, not every population has a very significant improvement, but all are at least equal, if not a little bit more. And again, this is looking at the college as a whole. So just, little sprinkling of some of the data here. Okay, I'm gonna just quickly move on. Okay, so here's the question. Why are the success rates better when an instructor uses OER versus not OER, or ZTC versus not ZTC? The simple answer is students can't learn from books they can't afford. So here's another 2018 very large survey that asked students more specifically about their experience. And so this is looking at students across all demographics, different institution types, and 64%, over 64% of them said that at some time in their college career, they didn't purchase a textbook because it was too expensive, okay? Almost 43% said that they take fewer courses at some time in their college career because the textbooks were too expensive. Over 40% said that they didn't register for a specific course because of the cost of textbooks. 35, almost 36% said that they earned a poor grade because they didn't purchase the textbook, and so they just attempted to take the class without the textbook. And then almost 23% dropped a course because they couldn't afford the textbook. So, you know, thinking back, I think back to my college career and some of the things that I did. I was very strategic about the courses that I took. Sometimes I would go into the Fresno State Library or the bookstore, look at the cost of the textbooks for a certain course, and just think in my mind, well, I know like not all these professors require you to read very much of your textbook, so I'm going to just try it and see if I can get away with getting a pretty good grade or passing the class without buying the textbook. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not possible. Students that are savvy are going to try some of these strategies. Sometimes they will succeed, sometimes they will get a great grade, but sometimes they will get a lower grade, and sometimes they will just fail the course or have to drop the course. So those are the reasons why the success rates are different, or one of the reasons why. Okay, now how to use OER, how to incorporate OER materials in your course. Let me just give you a small little tangent right here. When I first started teaching at Fresno City, it was nearly 25 years ago now. I was a pretty new instructor, didn't have a lot of experience. My department chair, who was Rick Santos, just handed me a textbook and said, here you go, this is what we recommend you use. And so I just started my class with chapter 1, finished chapter 1, then moved on to chapter 2, finished chapter 2, and so on, basically until I ran out of weeks in the semester. As I got more experience, became a more competent instructor, and SLOs came into my life, I started to really look at, okay, what do I have to do to have my students meet the SLOs, the objectives of the course on the course outline of record? And the textbook that I was using, tried a few different ones, they didn't 100% align. So I had to supplement, I had to bring in outside articles to cover some of the material that the textbooks didn't cover, and then I was skipping some of the chapters in the textbook. And as my teaching career went forward, I did that more and more, and I started coming up with better content than the textbook authors. And then I started getting to a point where
Sally, it's Susie. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
You and let Stephen know that your second interpreter is here if you want to hand off to Graham.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And I just made Graham a co-host. Okay. Oh my gosh, what was I saying? Okay, so at that point, I began to feel guilty because I was making my students buy $112 textbook, and we weren't really using, the majority of it, maybe about half of it. So then I started to give them assignments, readings, and homework from this textbook that they didn't really need in order to meet the objectives of the course. So now I'm giving them more work that they have to do. I'm giving myself more work, grading, that I shouldn't have to do, just because I'm using this okay textbook, not great textbook. When I started to switch to OER and ZTC materials, what best practices says to do is to look at the objectives of the course, the SLOs and the objectives of the course, and try to think about, okay, what are the things that I want my students to learn, and then plan assessments that would test those concepts and those ideas. So once I've got the assessments, then I look for free material, openly licensed and free material that the students need to succeed on the assessments, okay? Then the last step is delivering that material, giving that to them in Word documents, PDFs, videos, Canvas pages, that kind of thing. So it's really giving instructors ultimate control about what they want to teach, how they want to teach it, in the order that they want to teach it. You don't have to be tied to what a commercial textbook publisher dictates. Okay. Okay. For the attribution, really the attribution, the citations for using any of these OER materials is a little bit simpler than, following MLA and APA rules. Really, you just want to make sure that you give the title, the author, the source, which is like the URL, and then the license. And the good news is that most of the time when you are looking at an OER that's online, that will all be packaged for you in this nice little, you can see here's an example of, oh no, of one on the bottom that I created. You can just copy that and just paste it right onto the front page of your document, or the copy center will print anything that has that, that you're legally okay to copy. Or you can put it on your bottom of your Canvas page. If it doesn't have something like that, there's something called the Open Attribution Builder, and you just enter the information, the title, the author, the license that it has, and then it will create the attribution for you. Okay, I am going to hand off to Linda now, and let's see. Linda, do you want to take over the screen, or do you want me to advance the slides?
If you don't mind advancing, that
Okay,
would be,
yeah,
that'd be
no problem.
helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. That was really great. Thanks for sharing that data too. It's nice seeing it on the screen and in nice charts. So I'm gonna start covering just places that we recommend, and when I say we, I mean Sally and I, in our helping faculty look for OER and ZTC materials, and also looking for ourselves and looking at where colleagues in the district as well as statewide find OER, high quality OER that is. We're going to run through probably about 20 different places to find OER, starting with some of the more local or regional ones, and curated collections that we sort of are our go-tos when faculty are asking for suggestions on where to look, or some finding OER for their specific courses. So just a warning, it's going to be a lot of slides, a lot of different links and places to go to. Sally created a really nice document that we can send after the session with the links to each of these. So if you don't catch those, we will have that, and we'll try to paste them into the chat as we go through them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the ASCCC OERI. So Sally mentioned this earlier in the talk that I'm a liaison for this program. I have been for a few years, actually took over for Sally when she moved out of that role. Basically, I am your go-to for any questions you have about OER, about grants that are coming through the OER initiative. Again, this is through the state Academic Senate. And so these are colleagues that we're also working in community colleges across California. And they have a really, really great website that they've been able to develop throughout the years. There are a couple of great tabs. I don't know, Sally, if you can click on the link to get to the website. If you look up at the top resources, there are two links that are really going to be helpful. That first one is the curated OER collections. These are organized by discipline. That's where you usually go. But you can also look by CID, course number, and those kinds of things. But I usually go to this alphabetical list for each of these OER resources. And again, these are curated. So a lot of these are were developed or adapted by faculty in the California community colleges. They're being used by faculty in the California community colleges as well. So this is a really good collection, and these are mostly textbooks. There are some other full courses, some homeworking systems and courseware, and you can see that they break them down by each of the major subjects or the CIDs. The other link on there is the supported resources, that second one. And this one is just helpful because you can scroll through what is currently being developed through some of the funding opportunities. And so you can see some of these are already completed, some of them are not completed, but they are in progress. And so you can see upcoming OER that is about to be published or that was just published. So a lot of times you may get an email from me saying, here's a new resource in your subject area, or from Sally, will send those out as well. But you can always reach out to us and ask, and usually we'll look through these lists and see if there's anything new in your subject area, especially if you've been looking for something and you haven't quite found anything for a specific course that you're teaching. The OERIs are pretty much our go-to when we start searching for resources. Okay, next slide. I think that just shows what we just looked at. The OERI also has a Canvas site, and this is separate from our state center Canvas. This is through, I think it's the state has a Canvas instance or account. And so when you go into the Canvas site, it looks exactly like ours. You do have to enroll in the course, but it's very easy, self-enrollment. The link is provided here on the page. Thanks, Sally. And you can look at different resources. A lot of it links back to the ASCCC website, but they also embed some of these resources into Canvas so you can download them and upload them into your course and then customize them as you need to. There's also a lot of training on the OERI's Canvas as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more about making your OER accessible, creating and embedding different things in Canvas, OER basics, learning the terminology, or learning more about the Creative Commons, or I'm sorry, yeah, the Creative Commons licenses, you can go there too. They have quite a bit of professional development and training. All right. Okay, so I'm going to run through some of these complete textbook repositories. And what I mean by that is they provide full textbooks and usually house those textbooks there. So these are maybe they're sort of unique collections, I would say, for each of these areas. Okay. So the first one is the Open Textbook Library. This is a peer-reviewed collection. It's got hundreds and hundreds of open textbooks, multiple subjects. A lot of these are peer-reviewed by faculty, and you can see those reviews, and they look at different content, how the material is organized. Oh, actually, they've updated it. So there's over 1,500 open textbooks provided in here. And so folks upload their materials here, and then there are faculty who go in those subject areas and review them, and you can read those. And again, quite a few different subject areas. These are, again, full textbooks that you can download and use that are under Creative Commons licenses. So they are OER that you can adapt, take pieces of, and customize them to your courses. Okay. OpenStax. Is anyone familiar with OpenStax or used it? I know quite a few faculty who are here at City College. It's a really great resource. These, again, are unique to OpenStax. You publish through OpenStax when you write or contribute to an OpenStax textbook. There's fewer subject areas. A lot of it is covers general education courses. There's psychology, business, math, sociology, different languages, and also introduction to college and college success courses as well. I know a lot of our faculty have remixed some of these, or they just pull the entire book and use it in their course. Their OpenStax has been around for quite some time, and they have really great integration with Canvas. You can download your own instructor copy and use that to use, and students can access the one on the website. Or again, they have these cartridges that you can just upload into Canvas, and the textbook will be available for your students in different modules. And I've heard different things about how easy the cartridges are to use, but there is quite a bit of support with a lot of these, and also you can lean on your colleagues who have done this before, who can give you some really good tips. All right, Open SUNY. So this is through the Milne Open textbook collection. It's a little bit smaller, but all of these textbooks are authored and peer-reviewed by SUNY faculty and staff. So this is a pretty unique collection. You probably won't find a lot of these materials anywhere else because they are local to the SUNY campus, or they have been adapted from other OER, so much so that they can be contributed to this as their own work. So you can browse very easily by subject, you can browse by author, and then it also gives you an option on how to adopt the textbook should you want to. Okay. So BC Open Campus is quite a few materials as well. They meet pretty strict accessibility requirements. So that's one thing to look for. Two is how accessible the material is. So they list all those accessibility requirements. There's not just textbooks in here. There's different types of material. Sally mentioned OER can come in a variety of formats. So they have course packs that include lesson plans, assessments, presentations. There's a couple of guides on there for how to adopt, adapt, self-publish your OER. So they give quite a few different resources in addition to the materials that are provided in BC Open Campus. Okay, so those are some of the repositories for textbooks. I'm going to go into these aggregated repositories. You don't have to pay too much attention to what these terms are, but we just break it down because these aggregated repositories just pull from a lot of different sources that are online. So you'll see a mix of different materials. These aren't so much unique collections, and the OER aren't usually housed in these repositories. They're just kind of feeding them into their catalog so that you can discover them in one place. But Skills Commons is a bit unique in itself because it is looking at technical education. So any CTE, manufacturing, healthcare resources, recreation, hospitality, any of those kinds of courses and programs. Skills Commons is a really good place to find a lot of those kinds of materials. You can browse or perform a broad search and then narrow by the type of material you're looking for. So if you're looking for a textbook or a lesson plan or ancillaries, and you can also limit by the industry as well. So if you're looking for something specific for welding or for auto technology, you can narrow down to those industries to view. And as far as I know, this is the only collection for CTE that's specific to CTE. Sally, you might want to correct me if I'm wrong, but so this is usually where we will go if we have CTE folks looking for OER. All right, we're on Cool for Ed. Okay, Cool for Ed is, it's a larger repository referatory that it's got books. It also has modules. It's got assignments, full courses, ancillaries, again, just a wide range of types of materials. It's an extension of Merlot. So if you're familiar with Merlot, Merlot is a gigantic repository of lots of OER stuff. But what is different about Cool for Ed is that it is specific to the California community colleges, the CSUs, and the UCs. And everything in there was developed and being used by faculty at one of our 3 systems. And this is, I believe, where we are required as part of our chancellor grants to upload our materials as well. So anything that's been funded by the ZTC grants that you've heard about, those final products are going to be put into Cool for Ed. And again, you can browse very similarly to how the OERI has organized its materials. You can browse by CID, by course. They try to find those common course numbers. And then there's also what I like to look at is the course material showcase. So faculty kind of describe their process, their use of the OER, their challenges using it, anything different that they've noticed in their student learning or success, student feedback. So it's nice to read some of those reviews about the OER that they're using. They're also rated, so a lot of the OER is evaluated, and the ratings are based on a rubric for Cool for Ed, by Cool for Ed. Okay, Open Oregon is a smaller collection. It's focused in Oregon, but I know that quite a few faculty across the California Community College system have adapted some of these resources to be more specific to California. And you can limit by institution and titles that include ancillaries. And if we go looking at it, some of these you might notice that there is they might not be OER, but they might be available in the library. And if that happens, contact us and we can see if we're also able to make it available through our library too. So if you find a book in there that looks interesting, it's not OER, but it is available through the library, we can look here at FCC. All right, OER Commons. I'm going a little bit backwards because OER Commons is a huge repository, but what's really nice about OER Commons is that it covers a lot of ground as far as OER. Sometimes, and I know in my library skills course where we teach introduction to college research, some things from K-12 are helpful that I can adapt and use in my course. And so OER Commons has materials from K-12 to community college to graduate level. So you can browse a wide range of OER here. The best thing to do in OER Commons is you could do a really broad search and then use those filters. It's got quite a few filters where you can really focus what you're trying to find. So, oh, LibreText. Okay. LibreText is, and if we have a lot of faculty on campus too using LibreText. So it's a repository. It was developed at, I think, UC Davis by a chemistry instructor who is still managing LibreText. It's been growing and it's just a really cool platform. A lot of our faculty here at Fresno City College use it. What's nice about LibreText is that a lot of things are nice about it, but one of them is that you can remix materials easily. We put easily in quotes because the platform itself does make it really conducive to remixing. So you don't really have to change formats or like, change a PDF into a Word document and do all of those different things. You can do everything within LibreText, but the remixer within LibreText has sort of a learning curve. So you do want to go to training. And luckily, LibreText does quite a bit of training. They actually just released a whole training series for this semester on an introduction to it and all of its different platforms. It also hosts Adapt, which incorporates what's known as H5P, which allows you to create interactive assessments and tools and embed those into your textbook. So I know our instructors in Spanish are using LibreText, or they use H5P quite a bit to get all those interactive activities embedded into their OER. So if you have questions about LibreText, just let us know. We've had trainings locally here hosted on one of our campuses. We've done them online. They're very flexible and very, very helpful in supporting faculty with all things OER. And they cover a wide variety of topics as well. There's different bookshelves that you can browse and look through. You can also look through Fresno City College's bookshelf to see what is being used here locally. All right, OASIS. I never know how to say this, Geneseo. So that is really just pulling materials from other repositories. So it pulls from lots of universities, lots of open publishing houses. It's got things like TED Talks. It also pulls in from BC Campus, which we mentioned, and LibreText as well. So you might see some duplication in this, but again, it's also a large resource. It's got, you know, almost 500,000 different records. So I would say if you don't get easily overwhelmed by too many search results or get information overload, you can go to OASIS and just do a wide search. All right, Google Advanced Search. So a lot of times I go to Google. I know it's hard to believe a librarian saying this, but it has such a powerful search that you can find a lot of things, especially if you know how to use the advanced search features. And the advanced search features include usage rights. So they're not always 100%. I do recommend that when you find something, even if it says it's open access or Creative Commons license, go into the resource itself and look for that licensing statement or that copyright statement just to make sure. But it makes it pretty easy for you to just do a broad search. I want business ethics. My example here is so small, and I want to be able to modify it or, use it in my course or even sell it or something like that. Then you can browse all of those Google results links, and usually it does a decent enough job. Okay, so we have local resources here, and Sally mentioned earlier that, or explained very well, the difference between openly licensed resources and ZTC resources or zero cost resources. And when you're looking for something that might not be open, so you can't really make any modifications to it, you just kind of want to use it as is, the library has many of those. And so we have our 3 primary ebook repositories or collections that we offer. O'Reilly for Higher Education is a popular one, I know, among some of our digital arts courses, some of our CIT and business technology courses. It's got a lot of great resources and learning paths for students on various technology topics, but also other kinds of things like communication and business resources. So that's a really good resource and very up-to-date materials as well. EBSCO eBooks is a really large collection as well. That's got quite a few really good materials that I know some of our faculty are using in their courses. It also has fiction books too and novels. So you can find some of those in there as well. And ProQuest similarly is a big collection that we offer. Again, all of this is free through the library, and most of our books in EBSCO, ProQuest, and O'Reilly have unlimited user access. So your entire class could log in and read a book together without any restrictions. Okay, and this is just showing you how to get there. So on our website, go to our OneSearch catalog. Then once you're in there, you can use the filters on the left-hand side. If you go to the next slide. Perfect, yeah. And so you can look for lots of ebooks, filter by date, and you can also limit by, I didn't circle this, but we do have some open access materials in our courses too, which are not fully OER, but they are openly available. There's no restrictions on sharing them, printing them out, and providing them to your students. Okay, and then the last resource that I want to highlight is our OER LibGuide. And this is one that I've been trying to update this past year to include more information just about what OER and ZTC looks like on FCC's campus, there's also a video on there that shows you how to mark your course ZTC in the online schedule using the Follett Discover system. There's also a video for students showing them how to find ZTC courses in the online schedule. So check out our LibGuide. We do have a short list of where to find OER and some subject lists in there, but it's also a good place for introduction to different OER concepts, vocabulary, and some information about our award programs as well. And then we didn't get to this. A lot of what we covered were textbooks and things like that, but there are a growing number of video, media, image collections that are free or public domain. And so you can use those as well. We've linked to quite a few of those here. All right, I think that's all. Yeah, so we'll leave it open, see if anybody has questions, and then while Sally's putting all those media collection links into the chat as well.
Yeah, I think I got everything, unless someone missed one, or they have some questions about something. I did not get a chance to see if there were any questions from earlier. Doesn't look like it. ASL and OER. Linda, do you want to? You're muted.
Sorry. Of course. Yes, if you want to email me, we can send you a list. I know they're developing some things at Reedley. Is that right, Sally? Did they complete those projects?
Yes, I know that they're making videos. I don't know about actual textbooks, but that was the main thing, or maybe a video canvas shell with videos in it. But yeah, that's currently under development. No, Brandon, not yet. The applications were due to the state on December 15th, and you know, we turned ours in on the very last day, which I'm sure a lot of colleges did. So with the holiday and with that whole situation, I would expect that we will hear back in the next two to 3 weeks. And yes, I will let you know ASAP as soon as I hear. And regarding grants, we are currently working with some Chancellor's Office state grants right now. There, as of today, right now, we don't have an open application process. However, we did in December receive some additional funds, and so the OER committee, OER ZTC task force is going to be working with Academic Senate this semester on how to spend those funds. And there are also some additional state funds that we will be applying for. I don't know offhand the due date, but it's probably April or May. Right now, the Chancellor's Office really is focused on what they call pathways, which are either full degrees or CTE certificates. And what they want colleges to do is to create zero-cost degrees for, you know, whatever program. or CTE certificates. So that's kind of where our focus is right now. Now, of course, there are GE courses that are associated with every degree. But if your department or your program is interested in being funded for and pursuing a full zero cost degree, please reach out to me and let me know, especially if you already have some experience with it. Maybe you have some courses that some of your instructors are teaching or offering as zero cost, and maybe you have just a few more courses that you need to work on. It doesn't mean that every single section of every single course that's offered has to be zero cost. So for example, I've been talking to some of the communication studies faculty about doing a ZTC comm degree potentially. So my understanding is that for some of the courses, most of the offerings when you look in self-service are ZTC, but not every one. About half of the comm instructors use ZTC, about half do not. And so we would just have to make sure that there is an option for students, a strategic savvy student who's really looking for it, to be able to take all of the courses needed for that comm degree and do it at zero cost. So there will be funds available for developing the course material, and then there also could be funds available for once the materials are developed, or if they are currently existing, there could be stipends available for faculty to just simply adopt, because that is some work to switch your textbook out. So so those are conversations that we could have. If you're interested, if you're not the chair, you can reach out to your chair, or I'm very happy to come to any department meetings to talk to your faculty, or even just get together with a few interested faculty and just talk about the possibility, if that's something that you want to explore. Does anybody have any other questions? One thing that I wanted to remind you, I think we still have like 15 or so minutes technically left in this session, so we're not going to kick you out or anything. Just give you some time to keep searching through the repositories. But Susie let me know that she sends out an email with a feedback survey for all of the sessions. This is really important for us, so please fill out the survey. And this presentation that we did today, it really just briefly hit on many topics within OER ZTC. So if there is something that you feel like you want more of, you want more information on a particular topic, maybe going into the licenses more, talking about how to incorporate it into your courses. We can get even a guest speaker. We can enlist our instructional designer Sue Yang to help us out with a workshop. We could bring in an expert from another campus or from the OERI. We can do those kinds of things. So if just anything at all that you think of, if you could put that on the survey, that would be great, because we will get that feedback. And then here are our email addresses. So you can definitely reach out to either Linda or me at any time with any questions that you have, any just anything that you think of. just, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions about grant opportunities, questions about your discipline, how to find materials, even how to find not necessarily openly licensed materials, but library materials. We can hook you up with a librarian that is an expert in your discipline and can help you find some library materials for your course. Yes, it does take some time. I agree with you, Jennifer. It does take time to develop a ZTC course. Not going to lie about that. That is, one reason why we like to pay our instructors, give our instructors a little stipend. But my experience has been, and experience that I've talked that other people have had, is that once you start using OER ZTC, it's really hard to go back to a commercial textbook. It's just much more aligns with the way that you teach, aligns with what's relevant for your students much more, and you just have a lot more academic freedom doing it that way. So. And I think, for English, there are so many textbooks out there, that it's just a little overwhelming to even, go through and try to pick out which textbook to use. But the hard part is going to be your novels, your readings, your articles, gathering all of that. So yeah, that can take some time. For other disciplines, they're not as fortunate as English, and so there may be just one or maybe two or three textbooks that you might want to use, and then in that case you can take a look and use a chapter here, a chapter there, pull in some articles and videos to supplement. But I really recommend doing that backwards mapping, starting with your SLOs and your objectives of your course, and really starting from that perspective rather than looking at a textbook and trying to kind of finagle your course objectives into someone else's created material. Okay, so yeah, so I guess that's it. We can be done a few minutes early. And again, do not hesitate to reach out to Linda or me with any questions or with any assistance that you might need. And yeah, hopefully I'll be seeing you around. And good luck next week on the start of the semester.